Hello there, and welcome to my Financial Freedom Education Series and my Entrepreneur Spotlight distinguished guest, Lili Vasileff. Welcome.
Thank you.
Lili is a divorce specialist, specifically as a mediator, a matrimonial litigator, certified financial planner, master financial analyst, and certified divorce financial analyst, author, writer, and speaker. So if you are interested in getting divorced, you have absolutely got to talk to this woman because she's got it all going on. So thank you so much for joining. We are delighted to have you today. And I thought this is an important topic because many couples are afraid to face a lot of their financial and emotional and social issues, as I'm sure you will know. And I think it's critically important to have someone such as yourself, as a mediator specifically, who is compassionate, understanding, has 32 years of experience with wealth management, and is one of the foremost top wealth manager experts in the country, high net worth. So I think that when people have someone in their corner like yourself, the process is less daunting. They feel like they have a partner. So today we're going to talk about not litigation. We're going to talk about mediation, excuse me. And what are the divorce trends that you're seeing in the industry right now? And how can you help couples navigate this very complex and very emotional environment? So let's definitely start with you have 32 years of experience. You've worked with very complex as well as simple divorces, I'm sure. And there seems to be a couple of very interesting trends happening. One in particular is something called the staggering divorce trend of gray divorce. Interesting topic. So if you would be so kind as to share, what is that? Why do you think it's happening? And how can you help clients navigate that journey with them?
So, Deborah, thank you for the illustrious introduction. It was great.
Mhm.
Um, so it's interesting because, the overall divorce statistics in the United States are pretty stagnant. I mean, they haven't really changed dramatically for a couple of decades, with the singular exception of gray divorce or silver splits, as you want to call them.
Okay.
And this is a trend for later life divorces, age 50 plus. And this particular segment of the population has increased their divorce rate by, more than double since 1990. And for those who are over the age of 65, it's tripled since 1990. The
Wow.
breakup in the breakup rates in marriages, interestingly, is in first-time marriages that are longer than 20 or 25 years. So this is pretty significant.
Mhm.
And by 2030, people are thinking that this is going to continue to escalate, where literally grade divorce will be 30% higher than it is today.
That's a staggering proposition and concept. And I'm curious, what are the underpinnings of these gray divorces? Is it because we're living longer? Is it because we're thinking we're having late in life kind of midlife crises, late life crises, so to speak? It's interesting.
Maybe so. And I think you know as well as I do that people go through all sorts of what do you want to say? Evolution in their life, right?
Right.
We are living longer. We do have more things to consider. And there's, I think, a certain sense of loss of opportunity or a loss of fulfillment, self-fulfillment that people are seeking. And it's really no different than younger people getting divorced, which is very interesting.
That
They
is.
want the same thing. They want a better life. And I think there's a much reduced stigma to divorce
Mhm.
than perhaps many decades ago when they tolerated unhappy marriages.
Right.
So I think for a lot of different reasons, we're seeing this particular generation striving for something more. And in that effort, it is complicated by a number of different factors, and most specifically, being on the cusp of retirement, which is why it's so critical to know financial options.
Absolutely. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, and particularly at that time, because more and more people are getting retired later in life. And they realize they have a longer horizon perhaps than they originally anticipated. So let's get back to your general experience as an expert in this field. And because I think people really need to understand from, young marriages to middle-aged marriages to late-stage marriages, what is the number one cause of divorce? What's happening here? Is
I
there a
think if I knew
breakdown?
that,
Sorry?
I think if I knew that, I would be a genius. But let me say this before we get to the number one cause. I would say it's important to point out the obvious.
Yes.
There's usually a lot more than just one reason, right?
Right.
And when a couple gets divorced, it's probably because it's been coming for a long time. And
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons why in most states, which are no fault divorce states, is called irreconcilable differences,
I
because
see.
that's literally at the crux of it.
Mhm.
So adding to that, I would say when I work with divorcing couples, what I see most often as a really prominent feature is that they have very poor communication skills with each other. They really cannot listen to one another. They don't know how to argue successfully. And I say that because I think arguing is normal.
Mhm.
Or they don't even know how to exchange ideas or be in each other's perspective to understand what the other person is saying. And of course, communication is going to be at the heart of any good relationship. It's what helps
Absolutely.
build and maintain intimacy.
Mhm.
So with that lacking, it certainly is a huge contributor to divorce.
Makes a lot of sense. I think also on that topic, many couples that I've even counseled with my Financial Freedom Accelerator and programs, helping them really identify what are their goals and visions. I most recently this weekend actually worked with a couple, and interestingly enough, communication is not only critical, but it's important to break through the fear, the anticipation of what the other person might think or what the other person might say, or be bold, be strong, stand on your own 2 feet. This
Mhm.
is your life, we only get one, let's rock it.
I couldn't agree more. But I mean, we're talking to people who have been really beaten down sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes it's just the feeling of, I assumed this role in our marriage. You're asking me to do something different. You haven't helped me in this role,
Mm,
et cetera, right?
right.
It's all of the above. And I'm grateful there are people and experts like you, Deborah, that really work with these individuals, because I, it's tragic when you see that no effort is attempted
Right.
to improve the communication. And I'm not saying to save a marriage. I'm saying just simply improve communication skills so that you have better success in other relationships going forward.
Exactly. How do money inequity in let's say net worth, for instance, and for that matter, children play into this mix, whether they be their children or adopted children or stepchildren? My God, there's so many factors. It makes your head spin. So, what are those all sort of triggers as well? And how do you help like couples navigate that? That seems sort of daunting, actually.
Well, I think you put your finger on the pulse of it. Every divorce is unique. It's
Mhm.
unique to the individuals going through it. And there's always unique to me as a professional, because they have different priorities or different challenges or different concerns for
Mhm.
later life for themselves.
Right.
But money seems to be at the root of a lot of emotional distress. It's like the lightning rod, right?
Yes, it
People
is.
will hold different values, they have different perspectives, they have different experiences growing up around money, and they often attribute behaviors to money. So, and then, kind of layer on top of that, whether or not they have adequate financial literacy.
Yes.
You're stirring the pot, so to speak, right? You're
Mhm.
bringing all of this around, and it's really often not money itself at all. It's everything we just put into that pot. So how you spend it, how you save it, how you earn it, how you give it away, all of this,
Mhm.
if you're not
Mhm.
aligned with your partner, leads to disagreements. And if you can't communicate successfully
Right.
over any of that, of course, you've got an imploding pot, so to
Yes.
speak,
Yes.
waiting to happen. And,
Absolutely.
sometimes when people are not aligned and the disagreements start and, they can't figure out how to compromise, the strain gets to be just too much. So what was once
Absolutely.
mine is now mine, and what was yours is now yours, and there's no middle ground anymore.
Right.
So I think it's really important to find a neutral space or a neutral person, a third party person to help
Absolutely. Oh, critically important.
partners
Yes.
really express without judgment in a safe zone
Hmm.
how to communicate about their money, because identifying and then learning from each other's perspective are going to be those key ingredients that at least give you that glue that
Hmm.
helps you move forward, right?
Yes.
And and this is what I strive for often in marital mediation. When I'm working with couples who may absolutely detest each other over money issues, but
Mm,
still love each other and don't really want to get divorced, it's often a last gasp attempt
mm,
to figure
mhm.
out how to help them communicate.
Right, right. Well, what a tremendous offer and tremendous career you have, because I think more and more couples are migrating to sort of a mediation model versus just going to court and quote unquote, you've heard the phrase so many times, taking my partner to the cleaners, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's going to bring up Vesuvius of emotions, et cetera. But I think that your point of, the third party mediator, such as yourself, who is able to really stem the tide, take the sting out of the bees, so to speak, and really get that equal ground as much as possible is so advantageous to creating better communication, and for that matter, frankly, maybe even saving the marriage.
At a
Possible.
minimum, there's transparency. At a
Exactly.
minimum, and people are brought to the table to understand what there is. And it often surprises me, although I don't know why after all this time, with you know older couples who go through divorce, that there's always one party who's lag in the sense of financial experience or financial knowledge or
Mm-hmm.
financial wherewithal. And it comes as a surprise to them or to that person
Hmm.
as to what exists or doesn't exist because they haven't had those conversations. So
Right.
imagine you're sitting at a table going through a divorce and you find out that you don't have retirement savings or that the person intends to retire before the full retirement age or
Hmm.
that blah blah blah, right? And that alone derails that person emotionally for I don't know how long it will take them to come back to get through that, to
Hmm.
be able then to sit there and rationally go through financial decision making. We're asking a lot of people
Right.
to make a transition that impacts the rest of their lives at the most crucial point in their lives without a lot of tools. So
Right.
that's why I think it's so important that you and I do what we do.
Absolutely. And I'm working more and more with couples actually on topics of communication and transparency and really being honest and honorable and respectful to each other. If there's disparity, come to the middle. If there's concerns, talk it out. Get
Right.
into the weeds,
Right.
so to speak, because I think partnership is critical to this universe. We thrive together, right? We don't thrive as single people in terms of being on this earth. We can all make a difference, yes, but we really do thrive together. So, how are children affected in these situations? In, for instance, the mid-age divorce, which are typically probably the lion's share, but then again, the growing gray divorce may be more of a lion's share. How are kids? How do you handle kids in this situation?
Well, clearly, divorce is about two things. It's about money and children. Now,
Hmm.
I'm not the parenting expert. I'm not on that child plan. However, given the different ages of the children, given how the temperament of the divorce is and what process is chosen, whether it's mediation or collaborative divorce or litigation, all of this impacts children. And what's especially interesting is that adult children of gray divorce are equally affected. And people don't realize that. It
Good
has a
point.
huge impact
Hmm.
on how you visit grandchildren, which
Mm,
holidays are shared, who gets married and attends the wedding with another new person.
right.
I mean, it's a big deal.
Hmm.
And when we go through a process together, me and my clients, I really try to point out where are the pivotal points that they need to think of in advance? How
Right.
will you be handling this? I mean, there's no Miss Manners handbook, so to speak, right?
Right.
What
Right.
to do. So,
But
so
there
you
should
have
be.
to sit there. I think there should be, but I think you have to sit through these things. And also, I also do the opposite. I also do the contingency planning, looking on the dark side. What if
Hmm. Hmm.
something doesn't go the way we are all expecting it to go?
Brilliant.
So I think later life divorce brings a unique set of challenges. You're perhaps putting children through college. You perhaps have adult children who are boomerang living at home. You
Hmm.
perhaps have older parents that you also are sandwiched between taking care of college kids
Absolutely.
versus your own parents.
Hmm.
So it's a very interesting period to work with these couples to have them planning for really an older generation, a younger generation, and putting themselves first. And how do they do it with limited resources?
Right. So, knowing all that we shared today, and I have some questions about the prenup, as most wealthy couples, and for that matter, maybe not so wealthy couples, just for separation purposes and individuality, would like a prenup and family decisions, et cetera, prior to the marriage, and the postnup. So, these are interesting concepts. Could you tell me a little bit about what each of those are, and is that something that you work with clients on?
So a prenuptial agreement or an antenuptial agreement is an agreement where a couple is identifying their income, their assets, their debts in advance of getting married. And they
Hmm.
write an agreement that addresses how they each want to handle how they build wealth and how they bring wealth into a new marriage.
Hmm.
And it may have um, very specific provisions. It could be global. It generally addresses time, uh, dollar amounts, sunset clauses, which means, if we're married for longer than this,
Right.
this agreement expires. It cannot address child support because children have a right and entitlement to being supported by parents. But
Mm-hmm.
virtually anything else gets kind of thrown into this. What's very important in a prenuptial agreement is to have sufficient time to have it reviewed, executed, and transacted with each partner's own independent legal counsel and their
Perfect.
own financial expert.
Hmm.
Now, a postnuptial agreement is an agreement between a married couple. And this makes it a little bit more interesting because they've been married, which gives a tremendous legal weight to the fact that they are a married couple.
Right.
And generally speaking, a postnuptial agreement will be an agreement where there's been a new event in the marriage. Maybe they sold a big business. Maybe they came into a large inheritance,
Hmm.
perhaps, something else. And they want to address this particular item.
Hmm.
It could be an addiction. It could be a dissipation of assets and recompensation by the other spouse. It could be a number of different things.
Hmm.
So in each case with a pre or a postnup, I think it's really important to kind of fully vet 360 degrees what will happen if you die, if you're disabled, if you divorce, if you decide to stay married. What's
Hmm.
going to happen with that wealth? And how are you going to either keep it separate or commingle it or give it as a legacy to your children or to a blended family? How will it be distributed? It's a roadmap.
Right.
And the point of it is so misunderstood. I think these instruments should be guidance and a touch point for continuing to communicate about
Yes.
money, the importance of what the values are for this couple.
Right.
So I look at it as a really positive thing. I know
Yes.
that's crazy, but I think there's a way to do it and do it
Hmm.
right.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, have the trends increased in terms of people doing prenups and postnups in this in current economic environment, for instance, in the pandemic? I'm imagining a lot has changed in your world since then.
Well, during the pandemic, I'll address it in a couple of different ways. And during the pandemic, the courts were closed. So
Hmm.
alternative dispute resolution became the only place you could address marital woes, so to speak.
Interesting. Mm.
And it was wonderful because it really enhanced the value of mediation and collaborative divorce in the eyes of the public. It helped them understand how to keep it private, how to make progress with it, how to get things resolved in the best and most holistic way possible.
Right.
Postnups I've done more in the pandemic than I've ever done before. And when I do them, it's a memorandum of understanding where I request or require them to have legal counsel then draft. So I'm
Ah,
not an attorney.
hmm,
So these individuals will then take it to an attorney, and I'm happy to support the attorney and the intent of what the agreement's supposed to be about. And I've seen a lot more. In
mhm.
5 years, I've seen in fact, I never knew about this until I was kind of pushed into it by
Oh,
clients who were asking for it. So
oh,
it is, I think, another avenue to, one, communicate better, to be more transparent, and to really create, I would say, the guidelines for what they want to leave behind, what's important to them,
mhm.
to have it memorialized so that it's meaningful.
Right. Excellent. I appreciate that explanation because I think a lot of people don't understand it, and that's why we have this show. And I'm interviewing you today. It's really all about education, enlightenment.
Yes.
I think also people who are viewing this should understand that both myself and Lili are addressing financial literacy in different ways,
Mhm.
and that people who are coming to a potential mediation should understand that, as you've said to me many times, prepare, prepare, prepare. So what that means is this show is one example. You have several books, and you're also offering a complimentary consultation to people. So I think education, preparation is critical, and particularly in those situations, which are probably more than not, the member of the marriage is making enormously much more money than the female, unfortunately, and we'll change that, of course. And hopefully, we see the women who are in that position coming to the table as much as an equal as they possibly can. So could we talk a little bit about that? And then
Yes.
we could sign off with your offers and your capabilities so people can really take advantage of that.
I
Thanks.
would, I would love to. So yeah, you and I are right on the front line pushing for this one. Um,
Yes.
some of the biggest financial blunders are the most common in divorce, and they all really truly result from poor planning, just as you said, Deborah.
Hmm.
Planning, preparing, preparing, preparing. Um, in my experience, especially for women over 50 and closer to 60, the number one post-divorce regret I hear, and it's straight across the board, is I felt rushed, or
Mm,
I felt pressured, or I felt
hmm.
coerced into making a decision that I wasn't ready to do and I wasn't fully informed about.
Wow.
And that's a crying shame.
It
I'm
is.
sorry. The reality of the situation of divorce is that, its pace is unpredictable. It
Hmm.
doesn't go linear. It's not
Hmm.
straight from A to B to D to da.
Right.
It takes its own rhythm from the pace of the individuals and the pace of the professional team. And at any given time, it's probably likely that the spouses are not in sync with one
Hmm.
another or ready to move forward at exactly the same time. And the less financially experienced or vulnerable spouse is going to feel unprepared, coerced, frightened, have analysis paralysis, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And you can't ask them to negotiate with any sense of confidence.
Hmm.
So the cost of not reaching a resolution fast enough, according to their spouse, or that they pulled the rug out. Oh, I had my offer in there. You didn't listen. I'm
Right.
taking it back,
Hmm.
is what makes these people jump before they're ready. And, the regrets are your aftertaste. So
Right.
don't do this. I
Hmm.
mean, in any situation, you are entitled to take your time to
Hmm.
learn about the pros and cons, any kind of a decision for both the short term and the long term. And this is even playing
That's
out the postnups and the prenups that we just
right.
talked about. Take your time to understand what the impact will be and where you can compromise or make changes to something to make it better for you. You want something that's sustainable, and you need to have confidence that you fully participated in that decision, because most of them are no do overs. There are no do overs.
Hmm.
This is
Very
it,
true. Hmm.
right? This is it.
That's excellent. So I offer a complimentary consultation, and I have the Financial Freedom Education Show, which has a number of experts. So are there any topics that people who are contemplating divorce need to find out about? They will look at that show. They will read your books, of course, we hope. They will consult with you as a complimentary consultation opportunity. And anything else you recommend to these folks who are contemplating this very major step, what can you offer to them that gets them in a place of confidence and in being informed and really on, if you will, equal footing,
Okay,
however that's possible?
perfect. One, learn about the divorce process. Find out what rights are in your state. Two, if you need to know a step 1, 2, 3 of how to prepare for divorce, this is one of my books called, Money and Divorce, which is behind me. I was invited by the American Bar Association to write their first and only book on divorce. And it's
Tremendous.
literally that. Each chapter is in of itself. And go to my website, wealthprotectionmanagement.com. I have free articles, free downloads, checklists, and you can schedule a free consultation on my website with me. And I'm delighted to talk you through, but learn about what's available to you, learn about divorce laws in your state, and feel that you have every right to take care of yourself going into divorce.
That's excellent, excellent advice. And I'm really grateful that you're able to share that with us today. Specifically, if you would, what are the websites that people should go to? Is it something you said in your state? Each state has divorce laws, for instance.
Right. It is the judicial site in your state. So, for example, in Connecticut, it's ct.gov, and then you
Okay.
go to the judicial branch. In New York, it's the same thing, newyork.gov. So look it up, and it will give you at least an outline of what your state is.
Wonderful. And then, once you have gone through this process, which we all hope you have, to be as informed and confident as possible, then if you have questions, Lili will be happy to speak with you. I will be happy to speak with you as a team. And we would be delighted to hear from you as to your challenges, your questions, et cetera, because no one can do this alone. This is a very frightening process. I think it's a vulnerable process. And let us help you become less vulnerable and more able to really chart the life you want after divorce.
That sounds lovely. Survive and thrive.
That's exactly
There you
right.
go.
Yes. So again, Deborah Burns, literacy to legacymentors.net is my website. The Financial Freedom Education Show on YouTube. I'm also on social media, specifically LinkedIn and Deborah Prosperity Mentor 1, as well as Literacy to Legacy Mentor on Facebook. And Lili as well has a tremendous website, enormous amounts of research and capability and books and lots of checklists, et cetera. So between the two of us, you're going to be a rock star in becoming prepared for this divorce. And we are so happy for you. Because as we talked about, Lili, this can be a pretty positive and exciting time in someone's life. This partnership didn't work out. It's not the end of the world. You have the rest of your life to live and to really enjoy with a new partner that's potentially a better fit. So all is not lost. We
That's
must
right.
always be positive and know that we have options. And as my dear friend Jane always says, I never changed my last name because I always knew that I had to be prepared to take a sharp left turn.
Wow. There you go.
So on that topic, I wish you all the best. And thank you so very much for tuning in today with myself, Deborah Pratt Burns, and Lili Vasileff of Wealth Protection Management. Thank you so much.